water, which we know is going to be there this fall again, at least this fall. So that's one of the big things that we're doing. So we've kind of shifted gears on that. We set aside, I believe, 1.5 or $1.6 million for membrane replacement as they age.
How's the water now?
The water's good now. Yeah, yeah. It's settled out, and we're not having any issues. But we'll have the plant to where it could create 6 million gallons per day if we didn't have the turbid water. So we're adding that capacity so that we can just meet demand during those wintertime months. So that's one thing that's it's kind of unfortunate. We'd save that money for replacement, and we're ending up having to use it for capacity reasons, and not really capacity, but more just so we can meet demand this winter. So more on that as we get closer, but that is one of the big projects that we'll be doing this year. Just as kind of an overview, water treatment plant has produced 576 million gallons of water through 23-24, as through February of 24. That's about 22 million gallons over the same time period of previous years. It looks, we've got new meters coming online. Summer months are a little warmer. So that's not too much over what we expect, but it is an increase in water. We continue to maintain about 85 miles of distribution, and that throughout the city. Again, focusing on replacing mains with the highest priorities, 7th Street being one of those. We're doing that right now as part of the 7th Street reconstruction project. I think a majority of that line is stainless steel at this point from all the repair bands on it. And we've managed to break it several times while we're out there working and not even working on it. So it's in definite need of replacement and is getting replaced. Again, we talked about the additional membranes at the water treatment plant being added this year. And then our maintenance crews continue finding leaks and repairing leaks as we go through. It seems like they come in spurts. We had 3 the other day that just all of a sudden, there they are. And then we'll go for a while, and 3 more or 4 more will show themselves. And our guys are good about getting out there and getting on them. So again, I think I covered this last year. Our average yearly funding for line replacement's about 2,500 to 3,000 feet. There's a lot of variables that go into that. Location size, is there economy in having more done at the same time. So if you think about that on a replacement cycle, we're doing it about 160-year replacement cycle. So it should be done way sooner than that. But that's the situation we're in, and we'll continue to make repairs and replace the high priority ones as we go through. Moving on, some of our upcoming projects for this year in the water fund. Did I get there? There we go. We talked about the water treatment plant, the additional filter cartridges, 7th Street, Oak to F Streets. That's happening right now. With the Stoltz Hill Signal Project, we will be extending water out of the intersection and tying some things together there to make a loop. Excuse me. The Grant Street water line replacement, that's been on the books for a couple years now. We're working through permitting with ODOT in order to get out on the highway to do some sidewalk access ramps. That's actually going well. Our next challenge is going to be Union Pacific Railroad and getting under the tracks. I think we've got a plan for that, but we're looking to put that out this year as well. Sherman Street water line replacement, that's one of those places where we've talked about leaks. It is still on the books to do. We just need funding to do it, and it may happen next fiscal year. We're also doing some small, I say small, some 6-inch line replacement on Vine Street off the ends of 14th, 15th, and Airway and 16th. To loop that system around, right now it's dead end lines, and we have water quality issues up there with them being dead end lines. So it's kind of Our operations crews are doing one section of it, and then we contracted out another section of it to do, and that's currently going to be underway here in the next couple weeks, I believe.
Wait, before you go this way.
Go ahead.
In the water system, we're also really deep into our lead and copper inventory. Oregon Health Authority came out with an edict that said we will inventory everybody's private side water line type of material the pipe is made out of for a lead and copper survey. So you actually have the municipality working on the backside of the meter, which is something we don't do. But they said we shall, so we are doing that. That has to be done in October. What's going to come out of that, I really don't know. Nobody really does. But we'll just work through it when we figure it out. So
They're just gonna measure how much, and you can't have more than so much lead or copper in the other side of the meter? Is that how I understand it?
well, so for us, we don't have any, we're removing anything, meters, old meters. That's why we're doing the meter change out programs, because some of our old meters have some lead components. A galvanized private water service from the meter to the home will now drive some lead and copper rule, regardless of what our material type is, to the point of delivery, which is at the meter. I'm not sure what that looks like for the municipality. I can't imagine that you're going to have everyone that's connected to our water system decide to replace their service line on their own as a homeowner. Guarantee we won't. But I don't know what that ruling will be moving forward. I have no idea. We're just tasked with doing the work.
It's kind of another unfunded mandate where I'm sure there will be funds allocated for it. I think I've seen something along those lines, but as far as our staff time and whatnot, we're required to do that. So in order to meet our water permit stuff. Any questions, any other questions on the water system itself and where we're headed and whatnot? Okay. Let's move on to wastewater. So this last year through February, this last fiscal year through February, we treated 968 million gallons of sewage. That's pretty good. I think it's on average of what we did the year before. We've replaced the pumps in the West Side Interceptor Pump Station. Those were 20 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah, so about time for replacement on those. We were able to start replacement on those. Still working on the wastewater treatment plant facility plan. You're probably wondering what the heck's taking so long. So our consultant is basically, for lack of a better term, slow rolled that right now. We're kind of trying to match it or pair it up with our DEQ NPDES permit that they're currently in the middle of writing. And it does not make sense to finalize that master plan until we have what our permit requirements are going to be. As kind of a side to that, Jason and I worked with our consultant to issue comments to DEQ 2 weeks ago about temperature rulings and what they're going to do with temperature on the South Santiam. When I say temperature, what our discharge is to the South Santiam River. It's possible, we don't know yet, but it is possible that we may have to do temperature mitigation. We're hoping that we're okay, but based on the new rules, I think there's a lot of concern out there from municipalities that we would either have to, I think we were talking about having to store and cool 100 million gallons at a time during high seasonal temperatures, and or install some kind of chilling towers. You can imagine the costs associated with those. And we're not talking huge degree differences. We're talking, decimal points in Celsius on where that would fall. So stay tuned for that. It's something we're following really close. Right now it's all speculation, but anytime that DEQ comes out with a proposed rule, it's more often than not that's what ends up happening. So we'll continue to work through that as we go. The top two priority projects, I think you've heard me say it before, for the wastewater plant right now, are our oxidation ditch, which replaces our current oxidation zones, our headworks, basically our aeration basins, and also an additional clarifier. Those two projects combined are estimated to be about 35 million. And those are our two priorities coming out of the master plan. We've gotten to that point. So right now we have set aside about 15 to 16 million for that project and are seeking alternative funding sources through grants, whatever that may look like. So there's little as possible impact to the ratepayer because those two projects will be, they'll be mandated at some point for us to meet permit limits. We continue to see a substantial increase in sewer lines and laterals that are failing. When I say failing, they're not falling in. Some of them are. I mean, we get a few, but they become very leaky. We see that when we're treating at the wastewater plant. We have an influx of laterals. We find a lot of wildcat lines where they go through people's backyards and you've got 3 or 4 houses hooked to them. And there's virtually no way to replace that without going through people's houses. So we end up, putting projects together that you can put it out in the street and redirecting people's sewer that way. So we continue to find that. Back in the day, I'm not sure why they did that, but they did a lot of that. I'm assuming it was for cost savings, but it doesn't help us very much right now. Just kind of on average, our city crews cleaned about 16,000 linear feet of main line and televised about almost 14,000 feet last year. So they're out in the system. In fact, when I see our sewer crew, they're in City Hall quite a bit. I usually run and hide because they've usually found something else that we end up having to try and find a way to mitigate. So, but they're doing a great job out there. Let's see. Moving on. So, sewer, I think we kind of went through this last year. Not much has changed. Again, we try and replace 2,000 to 2,500 lineal feet a year. Again, this depends on the depth of the sewer main, where it's located, what road it's on. So if you do a quick calculation, that's about 170 year replacement cycle, which is substantially more than it should be. But reality is to replace them all would be millions and millions of dollars. So we get the worst, and we continue to find the worst as our crews are out TVing. That's why they spend so much time doing the TVing and the cleaning so that we can find those and make sure that we don't have any issues moving forward. As far as projects, upcoming projects, I'll give you an update on the West Side Interceptor. The only thing we have left to do, which I believe is going to be starting on April 22nd, is replace the surfacing on South Main Road and Crowfoot Road. We'll get that done. It looks like that project, it was 21,300,000 or something to that effect. We're going to come in under by roughly $2 million on that project. So that's a CMGC construction manager, general contractor project that we did an RFP with, which for a large project is allows us the ability to work with the contractor as we're going through, and allowed us to, I think we saved roughly $800,000 in backfill just using an alternative source, where on a design bid build, you really can't do that. So we had some good savings there on that. And then we do what we call our allowances, where we allow up to, I'll give you the example, dewater is the biggest expense that we used as an allowance on this, which was $1.7 million, because nobody really knows until you get going how much you're going to have to do in terms of dewater. In around $400,000 or $500,000. So that money comes back to the city. It covers the contractor. There's no risk there, and that's why we ended up with the savings that we did. 3rd Street Alley sewer replacement, that's been on the books for a while. We've looked at it about Oh, for probably 3 years, we've come up with different designs for it. It's in a really narrow alley with 2 gas lines and power poles and fences. And it's 10 feet deep and it flows about half full. And it's in desperate need of repair. And every time we come up with a design, we look at it and go, that's not going to work. So I think we've got one now. We're going to do what's called a slip line of it, where they go in and they actually pull a new pipe through without bursting. This line also goes under 2 homes, and we can pull it through, and we can actually go in and build the laterals out from the inside of the pipe, so we don't have to do very much of any excavation on it. So that's the proposal. You'll see we're working to finalize all the specifications and whatnot on that. Stoltz Hill Road Sanitary Sewer Extension, again, part of the airport road project. We're going to extend sewer, try and get all the utilities out of that intersection, because as soon as you put a signal in, to try and do anything afterwards is terrible. We talked about the wastewater treatment plant facility plan. I think Jason and mine's intent, you'll see in the budget where we've, this coming year, to look for grant writers and search out any grants that we can find to maybe help offset some of these costs that we're running up against. And then we've got several projects on Grove Street, smaller sewers in different locations that we'll be replacing this year. Any questions on the wastewater side? Okay. Storm drainage, moving on. We have approximately 63 miles of storm drainage, almost 52 miles of open channel drainage ways. We try and replace about 1,500 feet a year, and this is usually incorporated into a project. I didn't even do a replacement cycle on this because it would be so far out there, it would probably be meaningless. And again, storm is one of those that unless it collapses, you're probably not, it's not that big of a deal. In fact, we used to put them in without gaskets just so we could collect groundwater out of them. So we continue to replace what we can. Our maintenance crews spend summertime doing a lot of mowing and drainage ways to keep them open during, so when we have heavy rain events in the winter, that they're open. Moving on into our storm drainage master plan. We've got multiple improvements that came out of that master plan. And so we're working to do a few of those. I think for this next fiscal year, and I'll get into that here, we're looking at the Willow Cedar area. We've looked at that for multiple years, and it's one of those where you need a lot of money. And I think Jason and I looked at this and went, well, let's just at least start it and at least get, and start building it out a little bit at a time. Otherwise, we're never going to get there. So we're going to start that this year. I think we've got $100,000 or $150,000 to start bringing storm drainage out and start capturing some of that water that sits in everybody's lawns. And that's the downstream end of that. So we'll start that this year. We have a few other minor capital projects. We'll continue to do our video inspection, and we continue to deal with the TMDL, which is our total maximum daily loading, which basically dictates what we do with storm drainage, water quality through DEQ. So that's quite a process in and of itself. I have somebody dedicated to doing that. So with that, that kind of updates the storm. Any questions on storm drainage? Okay, now everybody's favorite part, revenue systems. So right now we are on track to be at or above our projections with what we projected last year in terms of revenue. All 3 utilities are on track to come in or at slightly under budget. We're carrying, again, that's the great thing about the utilities. We budget for projects and things, and if we don't get to them or we use less, that all goes right back into the fund and can be used in a different way. It's not a use or lose. So we work through that and kind of work our capital off of that. You can see this year, we kind of did what, for the financial picture on our proposed methodology for increase this year. And this is based on inflation, based on where we think we're headed in capital. And so overall, you're looking at a 3.03 proposed increase to a typical property owner's bill or typical customer's bill. That equates to 2% into the water fund, 3.5% to sewer, and 10% to storm. Seems like a big percentage in storm, but the storm fee is relatively low. So any big percentage like that is what that equates to. Any questions on that before I move on to a rate comparison? Okay. So the next slide, it's going to be hard to see. This is a rate comparison. We always like to see where we're doing with rates. You know, how does Lebanon compare? And we pick 20 cities or so, and we do a comparison. And we have to do some work to get it back to apples because everybody charges rates a little bit different, you know, and how they do their base rate, how many units they use. And but you can see out of that, we're about fourth in overall rates. And if you look at the folks behind us or the cities behind us, we're not that far off from everybody else on average. I don't think I can blow that up any.
No, I don't think so.
So your average is about 100 and I think it's 843. We sit at about 125. And this is based on 5 units of usage of water. And we're going to probably change that to 6 next year as we move forward. One other thing to note, I pulled the League of Oregon Cities. They do a utility rate comparison. And I think we were, out of all the cities that they surveyed, I believe there was 70. $7 to $8 above average out of those 70 cities. So we're not the highest. We know that they're not low. We're very cognizant of that. Part of that is due to the infrastructure that we have and the rate base that we have. So any questions about where we're at there?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
On the, just to, put aside the comparison in rates, what's a comparison for Lebanon's facilities? You know, the water treatment plants, state of the art, it's new. Wastewater has 2 projects coming up, but it still functions at a good level. What's the cities that have lower rates, or what are their facilities updated as ours? Or are they behind the power curve, or do you know, or?
I don't know for sure. I think some of them are behind the power curve. In that same rate structure out of the League of Oregon Cities, it's interesting, the average rate increase, I think through, I'm trying to remember here, but it was, you know, for like water and wastewater, they were both, the average was about 10%. So these numbers are going up through these other cities. Some other cities supplement too. Maybe they have maybe they have more rate payers, right? So if I've got double the amount of rate payers and this is what I need, it's not a straight line. It's pretty, you know, the more rate payers you have, the lower your rates can be. Because a project like the water treatment plant, if you take that project, I mean, somebody else is going to build that. A little more capacity. So say somebody needed 10 million gallons instead of the 6 that we have. A little more capacity is not that much more in building expense when you start thinking about it. So the costs aren't a real straight line on that. It's not necessarily the more you have. It's kind of relative to more of a parabolic curve, I guess, with that. I don't know how many cities are doing. I haven't had time to research that. I know like Sweet Home, they're looking at a wastewater plant improvement. Corvallis, obviously, they're going to have to build a new water plant at some point.
Is Albany, are they about to kick off a project?
I haven't heard of Albany's. You know, they've got their new water plant, and
Okay.
yeah, I don't know that they are or aren't. The reason they're lower than us, and it's not by much, You know, if you look at that, they're what, a couple dollars a month lower than we are. But they've also got, what, their population is 60,000, so they've probably got three times the connections. So that's, you know, spread out over that many more folks, so.
I get the economies of scale part, but it would be interesting to know how this is going to evolve for smaller cities who haven't made the moves we have.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to have to build a water treatment plant.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost them and it's going to affect the price. So that's a good question.
Sure. And some of what you'll see is these smaller cities get USDA grants, right? So it's not where we don't qualify for that grant, right? So their rate is being supplemented by grants, so they're not showing that. So it just happens to be where we fall. What else on rates? Anything? Any other questions or comments that you've got? Okay. Our fiscal year 25 budget is built based on a 3.03% to the bottom line bill. Brandon and I looked at that and looked at where we were at on inflation, and we're doing that to keep up. We want to make sure that we stay positive, that we can do some capital. We know we can't do all the capital that needs to be done, but at least do some capital and keep our system healthy and continue to keep those funds healthy. So.
I would just say that I remember when this new plant came online, and the goal then for you guys was as much as possible, keep all rate increases to 3%. I've got to say you've done it.
Well, we have, we've looked at alternative ways of doing things. We do some stuff with our crews. We do a combination of things with our crews and contract, and are always looking for ways to try and save money. I think we've been pretty diligent with our staffing levels, and probably to our detriment in some cases, but
Considering what you guys do out there, if you all haven't been out to the plant and taken a tour, do it. It's amazing what they get done. I'm just looking forward to the day when you come back and say, you know what? We need to drop it 2%.
well, if I ever say that,
I'll kill it.
he'll kill me. I would love to do that as well, because it's not our goal. Yeah, I mean,
If
it's
you
not
ever
our
say
goal.
that, Jason will have a stroke.
Yes, he would. He would.
Well, the things that are really big challenges for us beyond just the capital, large scale capital West Side Interceptor type projects are all the sewer laterals that we have in right of way that are still old Orangeburg cardboard tar wrapped laterals that are collapsing. And, you know, the lateral program we have for our homeowners is awesome, but we're putting a lot of money into that.
Mhm.
Because it's really kind of a death by a million cuts when you get to the treatment plant. 'Cause each one of those failing laterals is a point source for infiltration. So we go from treating 2.5 million gallons of sewage to 19 million gallons, with 17 of it being rainwater. But the cost is still the same to treat it through our plant. So I think we're on the right track. I think we're doing what we should be doing for the community to help offset some of that. So I feel good about where we're going.
Yeah, we're putting about roughly $350,000 to $400,000 a year in laterals. And that's a big deal. I think it's a big deal to a homeowner too. When you start looking at the average price of a lateral replacement being $10,000 to $15,000. That's, you know, we're covering the public side of that, and they're covering the private side of that. So we're getting a new lateral from main line to house, and it's been a very successful program, and
Mhm.
I think it's benefited the community.
Yep, I would agree.
Got a question. What happened to the money that we got from the lawsuit?
It's still sitting in the bank.
Okay.
Yep.
Are you going to use it for anything?
That's part of the 16 million that I said we've got set aside for wastewater. Yes, yes. And it's drawing, right now with interest rates like they are, I believe, what, 750,000 a year on interest. So we're leaving that there, leaving it alone, and collecting the interest off of it to try and help supplement any project that happens out there.
Good.
Any other questions? Jason, did you have anything else?
I'm
Good.
good.
You're
Okay.
good?
Yeah.
All righty. Well, if there's no other questions or comments, that concludes this work session, and the work session is adjourned.
So we can say whatever we want.
Yeah, what fun is that?
Careful.
See if he,
Broke that finger right off.
he's trying to figure out what we're doing right now. He's like, why are they laughing? You look red. You all look red. More red than others.
So I guess we're gonna get a religious experience tonight. The old guy, he always, I don't see him carrying his Bible this time. It's possible.
You know what you should- Dollars into a
something like
facility the
that.
size of here with this computer after computer after computer.
Yeah.
But it costs millions of dollars to set one up. Oh, yeah. And there's overhead, because like you said, the electric.
That's why I didn't realize they were public. I invested in Dutch Brothers.
Okay.
I'm up 20% so far in the last 2 months.
I have some crypto, but I just, I use it for like pocket change. So I can just cash it out. I never go over like a couple thousand. If I want to buy something, I just sell it and just to wipe my card. Let's call the regular session to order. Please rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Mayor Jacola,
Present.
Council President Steinhebel, Councilor Dykstra,
Here.
Councilor Mann,
Here.
Councilor Savage, Councilor Ufers,
Here.
sorry, and Councilor Workman.
Here.
I take it he had to jump off for a call or something, so. Okay. Well, we'll roll right into the next thing. Consent calendar. Following items are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion on these items unless a councilor so requests. In that case, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Agenda, Lebanon City Council Agenda, April 10th, 2024. Agreements, property acquisition, northwest corner of Stoltz Hill Road and Airport Road. Bid authorization, Gills Landing Project. Council meetings, minutes, March 13th, 2024, March 20th, 2024 work session, March 20th, 2024 executive session. Easement, Airport Road storage, liquor license, Henry Solutions. And resolution number 7 for 2024, the resolution recognizing the importance of Arbor Day and the trees in the city of Lebanon. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second it.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Public comments. Citizens may address the council by filling out testimony comment card prior to speaking and hand it to the city recorder. Each citizen will be provided up to 5 minutes to provide comment to the council. The council may take an additional 2 minutes to ask clarifying questions. The city recorder will accept and distribute written comments at speaker's request. I have 4 tonight. Remember, I'll hold you to the 5 minutes. Not trying to be a jerk, but I think people, if you didn't hold them to 5 minutes, they'd be talking all night. So, but we do want to hear what you have to say. So first up, Keith Murphy. If you would make sure that your mic's on. Okay.
What's that?
Oh, just to make sure your mic's on, sir.
I think
ready?
it is. The light's on.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah. Okay, gotta get my glasses on. My first one is on the trash that you guys mandated for pickup for the indigents. I really wasn't happy about that. You mandated on the residents of our town to keep it clean. That's what they said at City Hall. At our expense, what part are the indigents doing to help in the community? The first, that's a question. Are they helping at all?
Well, let's get through your comments, then we can answer questions at the end. Okay? Because if we don't do it that way, it'll turn into a back and forth and your 5 minutes will disappear like that, trust me. So please continue your comments and we'll answer your questions at the end.
Well, that is my question. What are they doing to help out?
Well, I haven't done a survey in the last couple of days, so I have no idea.
So we're handing out this money and they're doing nothing but trashing everything.
And every day, the city of Lebanon works on keeping the trash off the streets. So I don't know what else you want me to say on that subject. There's always going to be,
Well-
there's always going to be people that are not really, let me just stop the clock real quick. There's always going to be people that are in communities that don't really give much back to the community. Always is. There's going to be a small percentage. Do we cut them loose and say, you're on your own? Do we, whatever other option there might be floating around out there in somebody's head? I don't know, but the answer is that we still have to make sure that we have a viable garbage system in the city of Lebanon, that garbage is picked up. Now, rake heights, I wish there was competition in the market, but there isn't when it comes to certain utilities, and that's one of them, so.
Well, the thing is, we're paying for it and you mandated it. So I know that during the Clinton administration, he was forced into it, but he did it because he had to. They made the welfare people go to work at least 3 days a week. And there was a big uproar about it, but they made them do it. And I want to bring this up about the first pilgrims that landed by Plymouth Rock. They found a small cove that had time, they had time to make enough gardens, but they didn't want to work. Half of them didn't want to work. The first year, almost half of them starved to death because they didn't want to work. Now, why I said that is they're too lazy to work is their problem. And what I'm saying is, if they don't work, why should we pay for them to continue to be lazy? Why not get those trash cans that they can throw their trash in? They can at least do that instead of going to the expense of you guys having to pick it up. Why not do something like that if they're too lazy to?
No, I understand your point, sir. The thing is I don't even think we have the mechanisms in place to make sure people are picking up their garbage except for public,
So what happens if I don't pay it?
what, your garbage bill?
Yeah,
They stop picking up your garbage.
the $4.
What $4 are you speaking of, sir?
It's $4 every 2 months.
Okay. Well, let me explain it this way really quickly. Your 5 minutes is expired. The reason why there was an increase in garbage is because of the inflationary period that we're in right now. I owned trucking companies in the past, and whenever you're in a period where inflation is the way it is right now, fuel goes up, just as the city's competing with labor costs go up and everything else. And that's what the garbage company was trying to fill that gap, that deficit they had. We don't really have a lot of, like I said, competition out there to go and say, hey, you want to do our garbage for us? It's just not the way it works for certain utilities, and garbage is one of them. I hear what you're saying. I truly do. And I live in the downtown area and I see it all the time, and it's frustrating. But all we can do as a community is stop and pick up the garbage and make sure that it's clean. Do I wish everybody contributed the same amount of labor to the welfare of our community? Of course, but that's I don't think that's a reality. So even in super good times. So
Okay, well,
was there any questions from the council?
there's only so much that we can pay, and then we go broke. And then you guys are gonna have to look for work.
No, I understand that. And I'm up for election in November, so thank you. Next up, James. Yes. Thank you. You ready?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, council, city staff. James Gold, we have the building down there at 96 East Sherman Street. We're gonna want to go over a couple little things. We're on our second year here in town. Don't plan on going anywhere. We're gonna go over a couple, I want to go over a couple of things, what we have set up. We want to do the block party again that we did last year. We did it in the fall. We achieved enough on the city block party that we threw down there to feed 4 families for Thanksgiving. We're still doing our veterans fundraising for the veterans needs and things like that. Like we just did one for the cancer treatment of a veteran. So throughout our club, through Oregon, Washington, Idaho, all through there, 60% of us are veterans in this club. And we have 80% of the members in this chapter here are veterans or retired or former military. So we're going to try to still focus on the fundraising for the medical and stuff like that for the veterans, and keep moving forward through that stuff like that. It's been a blast here. You know, we play right there on the fringe of the scope of what we can get away with, and we have a blast doing it. So we wanted to come down and actually introduce ourselves and see if there's any questions from city council or anything like that for us.
Any questions? Just remember to go through the process, you know, fill out the paperwork and get the permits and make sure there's, you know, all the requirements are met for events.
City's
So,
been really easy to work with to do those things. Very, very helpful. So we
Good.
appreciate that.
And the sooner you get it in, the sooner we can process it. Give us plenty of time. And then that way, and if we got questions, we're not up against it with it. So, but yeah, just get it in as soon as you can. And when you know the dates and whatnot.
Okay,
Okay?
we'll do that. Thank you, council
hey,
staff.
thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Jenny Lynch.
Hi, I want to thank you for letting me speak. I came here today to talk about water rates. I'm 71 years old. I get $1,000 a month Social Security, for which, being a self-employed house cleaner, and I was cleaning toilets today because you cannot live on $1,000 a month. And I clean for great big houses. Some of them have 2 kitchens, giant bathtubs, etc. I have 1 bathroom, no dishwasher, 1 kitchen sink. I don't water my yard at all. If it rains and waters, great. If not, it turns brown. I would like to talk about water rates and the fact that if you charge a fee, I will pay as much as the person with the big fancy house. Whereas if you charge a percentage of a property tax, then the people that are probably going to use more water than I am and who are more able to pay for it than I can. Like the gentleman here, each one of these things that goes up, and they really went up this year, is a real problem for those of us. You know, I don't know how I'm ever going to retire. I'm going to die with this toilet brush clenched in my gnarled hand over somebody's toilet someday, probably. That's my retirement policy. So I please hope you will consider not a flat fee, but which is a very regressive tax, but one that charges those who can afford it the most to pay for it. And mind you, that these property taxes also are charged through people's rent, so renters do pay them as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rod Sell.
Hello, everybody, Mr. Mayor, City Council, staff. First of all, I'm very thankful for everything you all do, for your volunteering, for your work, because we're doing great things in our community every day. So just know that we all appreciate you a great amount. So I was here your last council meeting to talk to you about an update for the trails. One of those things was the Georgia Pacific Mill Race Trail, and that we're starting to raise funds for that. We have an estimated project cost of $350,000. And I met with the design engineer today, and although very rough estimates, it looks like that's pretty close to what we're going to be needing to raise for the project. So this trail is super important. It's probably the most important trail we've ever built in our community, because it makes that connection. So Build Lebanon Trails has started out with our motto, connecting our community. And the trail system was meant to connect our community from east to west, north to south. And this one remaining trail section that unbuilt at this point will do exactly that, connect us from all the way south at Cheetah Lake to the north part of our community at Bro Mill neighborhood, Dodge, East Isabella, San Am Street. So at the last meeting, I told you we were going to go to the Chamber of Commerce, the Lebanon Tourism Committee, and request funding of $25,000 to help us reach our goal or get closer to our goal of the funding of $350,000 to build that trail. And as you know, we own the trail, the property now, Build Lebanon Trails does, and our intention is to build the trail and then donate it to the city and give the city a fully functional trail system at that point. So went to the tourism committee and requested $25,000. They graciously gave us the $1,500, which we're very thankful for. And with the fact that the city's got a lot going on especially with the Cheetah Lake Park, and a lot of the funds, the system development charges for parks have been going towards that project for about the past 2 years, and maybe the next 2 years to come. A funding source that Build Lebanon Trails has been able to tap into now is, at least for the current time, not available. So we're looking for every funding source we can find. And at the last meeting, the chamber came in, and I didn't realize that the city had another pot of money and the chamber requested $100,000 from that pot. And I don't remember how much you awarded them. Either it was a match of what the county awarded or the $100,000. But anyway, that just was another source of funding that we have not tried to get into to be able to help fund the trail system, the development of the trail system. So I'm here today to see if you can help us out with reaching our goal, or somehow getting closer to our goal of the $25,000 we requested from And that could come from the transient room tax fund or from any other fund that, you know, that you may see possible to give some funding for. So that's what I'm here for, asking you for money. I think you probably get a lot of requests for money. Any questions?
I don't think there's probably not any questions, but there is a comment from city manager.
So the way we did this with the chamber, with their tourism, we brought back a resolution to the city council the following month to act on. With this, Brandon and I, as we'll be meeting with Trey, I think there's some question on whether the tourism or the transient lodging tax can be used on trail system. There's a little bit of work to do on that with our city attorney. Department of Justice has got a couple of rulings out and it's kind of vague, so we need to dive into that before we can commit to that. So I guess either way, council's preference, we can either bring back a resolution if it looks like it's a legitimate use of funds for that, or we can bring back a staff report, which we'd bring back a staff report either way to identify why it's not. We just want to make sure that as we're moving through this, that we're following state law while we issue
We
this
did
stuff.
identify that with what we did for the chamber, there was still almost exactly left.
Correct.
Right?
I believe,
I'm not-
Brendan, that's the case with funding left in that. Yes.
I think it's a worthy pursuit.
I'd like to see a staff report come back on it as to the legitimacy of the request, whether
Okay.
we can or not. Because that was going to be my question, whether it's legally possible to use those funds for that purpose.
Yeah. The stuff that we've read so far is a little bit vague and it's going to
It's in
take some
judicial
interpretation.
things. Vagueness is exactly what you want.
Yeah, indeed,
That's why he has a job.
indeed. So we'll bring back a staff report in May after Trey and Brandon and I have met, and we'll work through the details of that and make sure that it's an okay use for those funds before we bring back any resolution. Fair?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're shooting, our goal is to build that in 2025. If for some reason we're able to come up with funding in 2024, we'll move forward and build it. And everything we build is built to city standards with city review. We get, they approve all the plans before we do it, because the ultimate goal is to donate that property to the city for the public to enjoy into perpetuity. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
you.
Next up is Alicia. How do you say your last name?
Van Driel.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll try and be quick. I got late notice about the water rates going up, and it's been several years since I attended the last meeting. But I do have some questions about that. I'm wondering, since discovered that the infrastructure was not really being planned for, and that the residents were going to have to cover those fees. What has been done since then to bring the costs and find money to create, more infrastructure fees and repair fees for water delivery?
Ron, do you want to address that?
So we do a lot of planning. We master plan. We've got master plans in place for that. I guess you're asking what we're doing in terms of funding. Is that what you're asking?
Well, for instance, all the multi-family housing that's, got a lot of infrastructure in it, SDC fees for new housing and new businesses, new buildings going in, and we've had a lot of that going on in the last 10 years. Are those SDCs being applied towards anything towards the water department, or are the residents strictly paying for all of that infrastructure?
So any new development that comes in, they're required to provide the infrastructure for their development. Depending on where the project's located, if it's oversized, then it might become an SDC eligible project. So we use SDCs where we can. There's a pretty strict set of guidelines on when we can and can't use system development charges. It's intended for growth only. But what you see out of your rates is intended for capital replacement, not necessarily for capital improvement. The capital
Okay.
improvement comes from developers as they develop. They're responsible to put those infrastructure in, put it in, and they pay for it.
Okay, so they're not getting a discount or a freebie on the SDCs if they are building a certain kind of a housing or a business?
No, the only way they would, if, I'll give you an example, if they have to extend a water line that's part of an SDC project plan, then they could get credits for extending that water line because it's part of a plan.
Okay.
They still have to pay the cost to put it in, and then their SDCs go. It's probably a longer discussion than what we have tonight, but there are no freebies. They pay for that.
Okay, so what does the city council have planned, you know, in the future? For instance, I'll use Sweet Home as an example. They got a grant, quite a bit of money, to help their water delivery system in the city of Sweet Home. Is the council here doing anything, applying for grants, trying to find other money to help our situation, since they did not cover it for many years? Or are they just going to rely on the residents to make that up and pay for that?
The city of Lebanon is constantly looking for other funding sources, constantly. It's a big game in the state of Oregon. That's why it's important to recognize who you're voting for to send to Salem and Washington DC, because they put all these mandates on a small community like ours that we can't just go, you know, we're going to do whatever we want to do. It doesn't work that way.
Who are you referring to?
The state mandates that come down. Now, we always constantly look for grant funding, other sources of funding constantly. That's my point. So
To the federal government or the state or?
all of them, all of them.
Did we get
the whole-
any at
the whole
all? Did we
gamut.
get any help at all in the last 10 years?
Yes,
or?
yes, we have.
Yeah, I mean, we see that. So most grants, there's a very narrow box that you've got to fit into in order to receive that grant. A lot of it's based on your population, but we have received a lot of grants. We received trail grants. I can't think of anything related to the water treatment plant. We have received some loan forgiveness on loans that we've taken out, but we apply, and a lot of it's timing and finding the right time to apply. I'll tell you, this year, we've set aside money to hire a couple of consultants to track grants. Most of these grant applications in the what I'll call the guidelines are hundreds of pages, which requires staff time. So we've actually set aside some money to have a consultant come in and look for grants. We're constantly looking for that. We're asking our legislature to help fund some of these bigger projects. We do that every year.
So at this time, can you give me anything concrete that the city council has done to fund the water infrastructure?
I guess I'm not understanding what you're.
Well, there seems to be some grants for trails, you said, but were there any funds, say in the last 5-10 years, that went towards the infrastructure or the residential lines here in town?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you were able to find some grants for some trails and some other things, but not for the infrastructure,
Yeah,
which,
like I said, it's a very narrow window,
Uh-huh.
what you can apply for. Unfortunately, Lebanon, we're over 20,000 now, so we don't apply for a lot of rural type grants. You got to apply and compete with every other city across the state.
so Sweet Home was able to find
Well,
one. I
let
wonder
me
if we
stop you
could.
right here, because this is public comments and this is turning into a dialogue back and forth with questions. Now, if you want to submit questions to the city council and the staff, we can answer those questions. However, we can't do a back and forth
not a
like
debate,
this.
yeah.
That's not what this time's actually for.
Okay. Will the council be explaining today how the rates are going to go up and how they're going to factor those in for the residents?
Say that again?
Will you be explaining, anyone here on your staff be explaining how the water rates are going up?
Yeah, we
and-
just had a work session that was last hour.
Okay, well, for those of us who missed that, will you go over that for us?
Well, we are getting into some stuff,
Yes.
yes. Yes,
Okay.
we
Clear,
will.
the trail grants come from Build Lebanon Trails. That's an organization who does that. City didn't give those grants, Build
Yeah,
Lebanon Trails.
a good organization, I
Yeah,
might say.
excellent
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that, thank you, you answered some questions. Yes, I would like to get more information on that. Who might I contact?
You can contact me,
Yeah.
Ron Whitlatch, at City Hall. I can help you with that.
Thank you. And I think the time was well spent, Mayor, on other people want to know those questions too, I'm sure.
No, I understand that, but
We
the whole
appreciate
point
it.
of public comments is for comments. It's not a dialogue where we start answering questions. If we do that, and I don't mind being here all night. I've done it before, but it will turn into every meetings all night.
Okay.
And it's
Well-
better, and everybody's better served because what happens is your question, you've
Sure.
thought about the answers on this side, they're coming off the top of their head, and they're not always the quality answers you're looking for.
Well, my
There's
comment-
a lot of research that goes into some of these answers, and I've learned that over the last year since being in office, that sometimes it's not as simple as it appears from the outside, that
Sure, I
it's very
understand.
complicated.
Yeah,
So.
I worked in building and planning for many years, so I just want to make the comment that the residents do pay pretty high water costs according to a lot of places in the rest of the state. I've researched that, and a lot of us do feel that there should be other funding for it other than just out of our pockets, because in the past, they did not account for that. And so we're making up for a lot of years where that didn't happen and the SDCs weren't
Well, I
applied.
could promise you this, that the city of Lebanon is it's going to be conducting business a little bit differently from now into the future when it comes to certain aspects of government. So I don't really want to delve into that. We'll be sitting here for hours. But no, you're absolutely right. There's
That would be
a
an
whole.
interesting subject. I'd like to hear
Yes, it
about
would.
that.
There's a whole grant, and the way the politics work in Salem, there's a lot of things that we're going to be changing how we do things, so. And it'll be for the better.
And will that be transparent? The
Of course,
changes that
everything's
you make?
transparent. Everything's above board.
Uh-huh.
We don't hide anything.
That would be
Everything's
great.
public record.
Yeah, okay.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into public hearing. Public hearing, resolution number 5 for 2024, resolution adopting the city of Lebanon utility rates. The public hearing is now open at 6:31. Will the city attorney read the hearing procedure? That was in the consent calendar.
City of Lebanon's utility rate.
Yes.
Resolution number 2024-05, a resolution adopting the City of Lebanon's utility rates.
Will the interim city manager present his staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. As you all sat through a presentation from myself and Public Works Director Williams, we updated you on the city's 3 utilities that we currently operate, water, wastewater, and drainage. We gave you an update on where we're at financially, how we're doing with projects, where we're headed in the future. The resolution here before you tonight basically sets the new rates for a 5-unit user about 3.03% increase for this year. 2% of that going to water, 3.5% of that going to wastewater, and 10% to the storm drainage utility fund. These are increases due to inflation, increased staff costs, increased consultant costs, increased construction costs, and this is why we're before you tonight. I will say that all 3 utilities are healthy and moving forward, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Council have any questions of the staff? Is there anybody who would like to speak regarding this matter? Then the public hearing is hereby closed at 6:33. All further discussion will be limited to council and staff at this time. Is there any discussion? Jeremy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you
It
have
always
anything to
pain-
add?
Well, it always pains me to raise the water rates. I have to pay for it like all of you do. But I understand the need and why we're doing it and how much costs have gone up. So I'm unfortunately on board.
Yeah. Carl and I were talking, it's the most asked question, I think, of most of us.
Absolutely.
One of the top three at least. And while I was outside counsel, I had that same question. It's economics. It's what we're up against. It's either have good water or don't. And I don't want to choose don't, even it cost me 3%.
We
Well-
already flirted with the don't during the drawdown. It's not fun.
The,
I want to boil my water.
in the work session, Ron had brought up a graphic of all the cities and their rates and where we compare and to neighboring cities and comparable size cities, I would say.
Yes.
Yes.
So we each year we do for those of you that weren't here, each year we do a rate comparison. We pick 20, 25 cities. And this year, looking at all three of our rates compared to others out of the 20, or I think it's 20, that we surveyed, we're number 4 in terms of rates. But if you look at that on average, and you look at the average, we're not that much higher than most. And I think I told you also the League of Oregon Cities put out a rate survey where they surveyed 70 different cities in the state of Oregon. And of those, we were about average, just a little bit above average on our rates out of those 70 cities. So we're definitely not the highest. I know it feels high, but, and I will say this again, staff is very cognizant of our utility rates. Any question that we ask about projects or moving forward, that's the first thing that we do is, how is this going to impact rates? So it's not something that we take lightly. We have it on the top of our head all the time because we're not wanting to, it's not fun to raise rates for anybody. A lot of this is mandated, and like you said, you want good, clean water, and you want wastewater taken away from your house, and you want drainage also taken away from your house and your roadways, and that all costs money. And we're doing it, I think, as efficiently as we can. We have minimal staff to do this, and that's one of our biggest costs is staff, and then your capital replacement. Those are the costs. So we do take it serious.
Thank you. In the graphic that Ron provided, the top 7 are, well, Lake Oswego's way up there, of course, but they're number 1 in rates, but totally different community than ours. But the top 7, we're number 4, but we're pretty comparable to the top 7. Then you start going down in the average, and you start looking at some of the cities that are below average state, across the state. And Corvallis is way down there, and people always go, well, how do they have such cheap rates? Well, they're probably, maybe I'm speaking out of a line here, but I will say that they have a huge project about to happen, and that's not going to stay the same rate-wise after they start paying for that project, correct?
Well,
Yeah, that, and then they've got probably 4 times the
Yeah.
amount of meter connections that the city
Yeah.
of Lebanon does to spread
spread
those
it out.
costs to. And unfortunately, in the construction world, we pay prevailing wages just like everybody else does. So those costs, they're kind of relative to each community. And it's a matter of how many connections and how many ratepayers you have to pay the overall bill.
And I hear everybody when they, because like Dave was saying that most people, that's number 1 question that we field all day long and twice on Sundays is the water rates. And I know they affect people's bottom line, their pocketbooks. We totally understand that concept. We're not missing that point at all. And that's why we constantly are thinking about it, constantly trying to figure out ways where we can have stability within our infrastructure, provide a quality product. When I say product, water, which we all need, and do it the economic way we can to prevent passing all that cost on to customers constantly. But I will also want to say that once I got in office, I started looking at the facilities we have in Lebanon compared to some in other cities, and our water treatment facility is top of the line. It's a great facility, and we're lucky, very lucky, that we had that facility during the drawdown of Green Peter Dam. So, I know that doesn't help people when they get their bill in the mail, but that's a reality. You're going to
And
say
I
some,
I understand the pain of paying that. My wife yells at me every month when she does. But also there's organizations like CSC, Community Service Consortium, that have programs to help people that are low income, low fixed income, to help pay for water bills and things like that, that hopefully we're referring people to all the time when we get these kind of questions. So there are some programs to help out there. And didn't we just get an award at our water treatment facility?
Yes, we got the best tasting water in Oregon this year at the Oregon Water Utility Users, or Oregon Water Utility Association Conference in March of this year.
So
Yes.
we're getting what we paid for.
Yeah, we get very clean water. So,
I think we suffer some blowback from what happened in the past. It kind of felt logical to me. That's what, and I see us preparing for the future as well as we can now, whereas there could have been a hole in what I felt it was with a couple things in the past, but I appreciate what you're doing. I think we're cognizant of it, and we understand it's economics.
Yep.
You have to be prepared.
alrighty, is there any other discussion? Alrighty, will the city attorney please read the title of the resolution?
Resolution number 2024-05, a resolution adopting the City of Lebanon's utility rates.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion to approve is passed. All right, move into regular session. Resolution number 6 for 2024 private sewer lateral replacement program policy and guideline update. Ron, will you please give your staff report?
yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. If this looks familiar, it's because it is familiar. This was on the agenda last month, and you approved it last month. I am bringing it back to you because the guy that put it together, and we won't say who it was, we're not going to say who it was that put it together, inadvertently grabbed the wrong policy and had it attached to the resolution. We got a new guy that came in and got the right resolution this time and attached it. Really, the only
Interim guy.
change, yeah, the only change to this program is we're paying the cost of all the stuff in the public right of way. The homeowner is paying the cost on the private property side, rather than switching checks back and forth or the homeowner having to pay the entire cost and then we reimburse the homeowner. Is a much simpler process, and that's really the only change. And I do have the updated and improved policy
and
attached
correct?
this time. It is correct.
Okay.
Yes. I had, my staff asked me that last time. They said, so that's not the right policy. And I said, yeah, you're right. It's not. So we'll bring it back. So that's what we're here for. And I can answer any questions.
I think we're good.
So basically, the policy pays for, just so everybody knows, from the sewer main to their property line.
Yes, correct.
And then the owner pays from the property line to inside their house.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So that cost isn't all on the consumer. So,
Correct.
okay. Will the city attorney read the title of the resolution, please?
Resolution number 2024-6, a resolution repealing resolution number 2024-03 and approving the private sewer lateral replacement assistance program updated policy and guidelines.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
We're going to have to do this again next time.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I hope not.
Till next month when he does it again.
Moving on to the next housing projection study code update. Kelly.
So good evening. If we all remember last year, we did a housing production strategy development with a Department of Land Conservation development grant that was approved by council. As part of that production strategy, there's a requirement for some development code updates. And so the city applied for another grant through the Department of Land Conservation and Development, which we received, to be able to do those code updates. And so we received that grant, and now we are kicking off the project. As part of that project, we are putting together a project advisory committee. And as part of that committee, we are requesting to have one or a maximum of 2 counselors participate. That committee is anticipated to meet a total of 5 times over the next 14 or so months. The project is required per grant requirements to be completed by June 30th of next year. So we are on a bit of a tight schedule. But the advisory committee is meant to keep us moving forward, to double check our work, and to provide us with the policy guidelines of making sure that we're implementing what the housing production strategy is intended to do. So we are requesting for the mayor to appoint someone and maybe have somebody volunteer.
Okay, well, everybody's schedules are different, so I'm going to ask for a volunteer first.
Yeah, I'll do it. I
Okay.
did it last year.
Okay. Counselor KG Olfers will be a volunteer. Is there any other volunteers?
I'd join in.
Okay.
I don't know if I can give you technical advice, but I can ask a lot of questions.
Perfect. Thank you.
Alrighty, that was easy enough. Next agenda item, Crossroads Community Nonprofit Affordable Housing Tax Exemption Request. Kelly.
So this has come before council a couple of times by Crossroads Communities, which is a nonprofit organization in our community that is requesting for an affordable housing tax exemption when the property is owned by a nonprofit organization. They formally made the request at the last council meeting to have council adopt this program, which is authorized by the state and the county. And the city has to take action on this program by adopting an ordinance. Council's direction at that meeting was to bring back some information and some statistics about what the potential impact of this program might be financially. So we have put together some information about general tax abatement programs for affordable housing in the city, as well as how this program may be implemented. Generally speaking, there are several different tax abatement programs that exist. There's the low income special assessment. This is for any property that has income restricted affordability covenants on them. There is a reduction in property tax assessments that are assessed at the county level. The city doesn't have to authorize that program. That is authorized at the and accepted at the state level. There's an agricultural workforce housing exemption program, which lowers tax exemption based off of the cost of running programs associated with that housing. And so the tax could be lowered, or based off of the cost, it could be fully exempt. There's an essential community provider long-term care facility program, which provides a full exemption. This is when you're providing like an assisted living facility that provides for lower income or income restricted residences. We have one where it is a facility that is owned by a housing authority, so like the Lynn Benton Housing Authority. We have a housing unit here which actually got a special legislative exemption, where for a period of time they have full tax exemption. That property is going to have a period of time in which they will be coming off of the tax exemption rolls, but they actually got a special legislative action taken to get that exemption. And then this new one would be a new option that would be available to provide for affordable housing assistance to lower property taxes to assist for affordable housing in the city. In terms of properties that currently exist that would be eligible for use of this, there are 3. It would be Crossroads Communities that has the property in which they own, which is the requester. You have the Colonial Pause Development which is also a nonprofit organization. They have 2 properties as part of their singular developments. One of their properties, they're actually already in the process of applying for an exemption under that farm workers workforce housing. They would be eligible for this exemption under the other part of the property. And then there's a third property that is eligible for it, but they already actually have a full tax exemption under an existing program already. So technically, 2 properties would be impacted existing with this tax exemption program. And in the staff report, we provided what the total fiscal impact would be associated with that, which is approximately $20,000 full in. That is general fund, but also fully inclusive of the urban renewal district's improvements as well. That's our current existing condition. And it's always possible that this program could be utilized in the future. Talking to the county tax assessors, this is not a widely used program that they have experienced. The city of Albany has had this program on their books for 30 years. And for that city, there are a total of 9 properties in total that have utilized this program in that 30-year period for their much larger city than we are. And so anecdotally, this is a far less used program in comparison to the much easier assessment programs that are already on the books. But some of those assessment programs are only reductions rather than this, which would be a full exemption. But there's also, just generally speaking, not a lot of nonprofit organizations that actually own affordable housing developments. So it's not generally anecdotally a widely used program. And then finally, just to add in, this would specifically help implement the housing production strategy that we adopted with action item 2.1, where we did identify to evaluate the feasibility of property tax exemptions or incentives to support the development of key housing types, and affordable housing was one of those key housing types. So that is the information we have available. I'm available to answer as many questions as I can.
Council, you have any questions?
What is it that excludes nonprofits from taking advantage of the other options? And why, if, I don't want to say this wrong, what if it's been in place in Albany for 30 years, they've only used it 9 times, what's stopping it? Just the fact that nonprofits don't ask?
So there's nothing that stops nonprofits from taking advantage of the other assessments. There are those other options that I identified. The most widely used one is the low income special assessment program, which is again a lowering of the tax base, but not in a full exemption of it, right?
I got you.
And so it could, a nonprofit organization that owns an affordable housing property could use that, and likely already does. And I believe, well, I'm going to stop there.
You can say believe.
Likely already does, but it's only a lowering, whereas this program, because they are a nonprofit, this program would specifically provide an exemption, which would take the full reduction of the taxes. And a number of those other options that I identified, those are specific caveats for different types of housing, whether it's assisted living or agricultural workforce housing, that kind of thing, where it's more specialized. So the most generalized one is the special assessment. But like I said, that's just an assessment, whereas this would be a full exemption.
Because I'm not always popular, and the people who we're talking about in this group, I'm all for supporting it. If it was just, I don't know what the ramifications are, though. I don't understand, because it sounds like it's saying that any nonprofit who came in and wanted to, we'd have to give it to them, right? It's not a pick and choose.
Generally speaking, no, but that's where I do say anecdotally, where the program has been in place in Albany for 30 years. and it's only been used 9 times. And the county has identified anecdotally that it is not a widely used program because, again, nonprofits are not generally in the business of owning affordable housing complexes.
I got you.
And so that's why it's just not widely used. And so will it, I can't guarantee that it's not going to result in more use of it in this city. But it is not something that has been widely utilized in our area is what I can give you.
It's kind of sample size for me a little bit there. But I get it. I'm not familiar enough how it works that I'm just asking the questions.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Jeremy, you have any comments, questions?
Oh, I did a little tax research and I compared an apartment complex in Lebanon that would be considered a low income, and I think it's the low income special assessment program, but I don't know for sure. And I compared it to a similar apartment complex. It's just your standard apartment complex. The property tax that was paid is already significant. What I call just a regular apartment complex is paying around a ballpark 150,000 in property taxes a year. The low income special assessment complex was paying about 15,000. So there's already a massive tax break that's available. So I'm a little bit leery. I think I have some more research to do on this, but I'm a little bit leery as we're talking about the budget we're already struggling with, and we're trying to find more sources of revenue. And I know it's just a small amount now, but that 20,000 could easily be 100,000 that we're giving up in the coming years. And I'm not sure right now is a great time to do that.
I would, I hate to agree with that, but I do. With the budgets right now, it's really hard for us to ask for sacrifice from the whole community and then forgive the already lowered tax rates on this. So I don't have a vote unless it's a tie, but that's my opinion. So is there any other questions or comments from council? If there's no, is there a motion?
Is this something we're voting on tonight?
Yeah, I thought this.
That's what I was going to ask, is Kelly, well, you're kind of looking for direction,
Looking for, yeah.
I do
because
need.
we haven't brought anything
Yeah.
in front of the council, but you're looking for direction on whether you should move forward?
So I need direction to move forward of whether or not we
Okay.
want to move forward to bring an ordinance or whether or not the conversation ends here.
Okay, well, I misunderstood. Okay.
And you could have a motion not to bring
Yeah.
it back, or a motion to bring back an ordinance. I mean, however you want to do it. People were confused, so I was going to say,
Yeah.
if
Thank
there's a
you.
consensus,
Thank
you.
you can give it to, or somebody can make a motion if they want to make a motion.
Or is there more information that you feel is necessary for us to bring back? I can do more digging, but I would need some direction on what additional information you would need.
Yeah, I don't know I'm always open for more information, but I kind of agree with I don't think I know enough to pass the motion now saying yes to do it. I don't know if it's the right time for a lot of the same reasons Ken said.
It's something that I'm willing to revisit in 6 months or a year. I think right now a lot of our focus is on the budget, and I kind of want to see where that ends up 6 to 12 months from now before we do any more cuts like this.
And Kelly, does this run for a fiscal year, and there would be a deadline to apply?
So per excuse me, per ORS, applications for the nonprofits each year is March 1st. So we would just need to have the program in place if we were to want them to be eligible to use it. Before, I would say we would need a vote on it by January of next year.
And I would say this is hugely complicated. I attempted to help Kelly with some of the statutory interpretation and all the different exemptions and how the exemptions on top of exemptions and partial exemptions. And Kelly, I think you did a great job presenting it. But maybe, I think what I'm hearing is maybe come back in, probably before January, if January would be when we'd need an ordinance.
Yeah.
If there's, I don't know what other information that that the council would want at that, or do they just want to bring it up again?
I don't know enough to tell you what I'd want to see, to tell you the truth. I'd have to do some research in that time to figure it out. And I think there's algebra in it, and everybody, I've always admitted I'm not good at that. I don't know how this is going to look 10 years from now. I know how it would look in this snapshot, but I don't know what I'm doing to my community 10 years from now.
How about we make the suggestion that we'll put it on the council agenda in October to revisit as a temperature check?
I was just about to say that after this budgetary,
Yeah.
through this budgetary process, and then we'll revisit it, so.
That's what I was going to suggest, is either bringing it back in either September or October.
Perfect.
I think enough research has been done on it. And according to the research here, there's only like 11 properties in the city that are using it, and only 3 would be affected by the new ordinance. So I don't see a whole lot of cause for a delay on it, but I do know that we're going into budget season and everything, so I'd look at it either September or October.
Yeah, I just think it's a matter of timing. After the last couple budget discussions, it was, yeah, so anyhow. Okay, is that what you needed?
I think we have our
Okay.
direction.
Alrighty. We'll move on to the next agenda item, Ordinance Bill 2024-02, number 301A, a bill for a ordinance amendment 6.40 of the Lebanon Municipal Code relating to civic trespass. Trey.
Thank you. I like simple concepts, and this is a simple concept, so it gets too complicated for me sometimes. What we're doing is, this was a request of a officer, well, a couple officers at the Lebanon Police Department. I believe that it would apply to the resource officers, and the resource officers would be able to cite for trespass when they're on scene. Right now, only under Oregon law, if they cite for civil trespass, only a sworn officer can make the citation. And so what happens is the resource officer has to make a call to a sworn officer to come down and write a ticket for civil trespass. And this way, I don't think it wouldn't be limited to just resource officers, but for now, I think that's who it's supposed to apply to. Is that right, Chief?
Yep, you're correct.
So it's just using our resources more efficiently.
Okay. Does the council have any questions of staff? Will the city attorney please read the title of the ordinance?
A bill for an ordinance amending 9.40 of the Lebanon Municipal Code relating to civil trespass, ordinance bill number 2024-2, ordinance number 3018.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion's been made to approve. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Jeremy?
That was an-
Can't hear you.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Okay, next one, resolution number 8 for 2024, resolution by the City of Lebanon opting into the recreational immunity pursuant ORS 105.668. Trey.
It's just silly that we have to pass this resolution, but we need to pass this resolution. For whatever reason, the Oregon legislature decided that any community or any town or city over 500,000, which applies to Portland, is automatically civilly immune under the amended or the revised statute that was passed in response to the recreational immunity Court of Appeals decision that we've talked about several times. But and this was in the bill originally too, but it's in the revised bill. Basically says if you don't have 500,000 people, you have to opt into recreational immunity. I'm not exactly sure why any city would not want to have recreational immunity, but I'm sure that if we don't opt in and somebody gets hurt, we're going to hear about it and say, you didn't opt in. So that's all this is doing, is having the city of Lebanon opt into recreational immunity. That is obviously in the best interest of Lebanon and its residents.
All righty. Does council have any questions?
I moved opt-in.
Well,
I
the
would
city-
say that at least they passed. I revised one that in response to the recreational immunity decision by the Court of Appeals. That was absolutely ridiculous.
Seems
So,
silly just to make people ask.
well, it's the opt-in part is weird, but I mean, give the legislature credit in a short session. This was extremely important to cities and towns. It was pushed by the League of Oregon Cities and obviously a lot of cities. And to their credit, they did address it in the short session. I mean, there was communities that were shutting down their trails. They're saying, nope, you can't walk to the beach. We were ordering signs that said, for our trails that say for recreation purposes only, which seems pretty ridiculous. So at least in response to this, in the short session, the legislature did something good.
All righty. If there's no other questions, all right. Will the city attorney please read the title of the resolution?
Resolution by the City of Lebanon opting in to recreational immunity pursuant to ORS 105.668, resolution number 2024-8.
Is there a motion?
I moved opt-in.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made to opt in. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Oh, sorry, Jeremy. I jumped. All
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Let's step back. Let's do this again. Motion's been made to opt in. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? There we go. The
The lag.
trouble with Zoom sometimes.
Yeah.
So moving on to department report, March 2024. Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm not going to go through too much tonight. I got a couple of things that weren't on here. City's auction is Saturday, April 20th, 10 to 3 p.m. at the Lebanon Maintenance Shops. There's a preview of what we're auctioning off, scheduled Friday afternoon. Don't know exactly when that is.
10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Oh, there we go. Is that the auction or is that the preview?
No, the preview's Friday, April 19th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then the auction's Saturday, April 20th at 10 a.m.
Okay.
Jason was telling me the stuff's online also now,
Okay.
right now.
Good. Yeah, so the auction, we'll get that taken care of. Just a reminder, work session on the 24th. We will be looking again at our structural deficit. If we can get, and you all are okay with it, if we can get all the information together for the, to give you some kind of an idea of what it'd look like moving the council chambers to the library, are you okay with tacking that on to that work session? Basically, all it'll be is kind of a general idea of what the IT cost will be and some options on a dais.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
we'll do that then on the 24th. Budget Committee, April 29th and 30th. Remember those, believe those are noon meetings, correct? Brandon and I talked, and I know at the Budget Committee hearing, we kind of outlined what we would do that first day. I think after really stopping and thinking about it, it makes more sense to have all the department directors do a presentation on the departments on the 29th, which is the first day. And then get into both general fund and utility funds and how the revenues work. Give you a little more time to ask questions, and as the departments have gone through theirs that way. So if everybody's good with that, that's the direction we're gonna head with that for those 2 days.
Sounds good to me.
Yes?
So they're gonna go through it one after another?
Yes.
And then they're gonna hang around and we get to ask them questions?
So you can ask them questions during that time. If you have questions the next day, they will be there again the next day.
That's what we used to. We used
Yes.
to, they would present and then we would go through their budget with them.
Yes,
And then the next one would, and we'd go through the budget.
yes. Basically, you're gonna hear from each department, what that
Yeah.
department does, impacts, what their plans are for that year.
Mhm.
And then we'll get into more of the, probably I would say nuts and bolts of it on the 30th, which would be.
The next day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And they will be there for both of those. It just give you a little more of a feel for what's going on and maybe have some ideas when we're actually looking at the budget, if you can hear from all the directors first.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I've got.
All righty.
Unless-
Thank you, Ron. Is there any items from council?
Mm-mm.
I'm
Yeah, I
sorry,
have
was
an
there
item.
any question? Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay, I met with some of the residents on East Elmore Street, and this is a section across from Queen Anne Apartments. And they've been having troubles for quite some time with, well, I guess parking on the opposite side of the street has caused multiple problems. I would say the main problem being the traffic flow through there, and a secondary problem that might be just as worse is there's been multiple transient broken down RVs that are towed in and towed out, and it's caused a bunch of garbage and just some rough incidents between the residents that live there and the people who are towing these RVs that are broken down in and out. And I talked to Kelly and Ron about this. I measured the street to see um, if it's even supposed to have parking on both sides of the street. And it's only 33 feet wide. And I think what makes the most sense is to just basically paint that curb yellow on the south side of Elmore Street so that there won't be parking over there and people won't be able to tow their RVs and just park them there for weeks at a time until code enforcement has them move, and then they move on to Grove Street, and then a week later they move them right back to Elmore Street. It's kind of a short-term solution to the bigger problem, but I think it also addresses the traffic pattern there, where when you have a car parked on both sides of the road, cars have to stop to allow other traffic to go through, and it causes a little bit of a jam. I didn't realize how much traffic goes through there. It's behind Connecticut Tire, and it's a little bit of a busy through street.
Alrighty, yeah, there's always RVs in that area back there by Queen Anne, always. I thought that was cleaned up for a while. Apparently they're back, so.
I like that.
So I
solution.
just
It's
wanted
not-
to get
it's not the end
I
all,
just
but-
wanted to get the rest of council's temperature on I hate to limit parking anywhere, but it seems like the best solution for this problem right now until we can figure out something to do about these RVs and transients that park them and leave them in places for weeks at a time.
I definitely agree with the concept. I don't know if where those people going to go next? I mean, is this just going to pop up around the corner?
Yeah, normally
Yeah.
they move on over to Hyatt Street.
So I get that particular, I guess we're kind of chasing a fire there.
That's actually a problem throughout the city, even on Sherman here, up into the residential area. When you get cars parked on both sides, people have to stop to let other traffic through. They're just not made for the land yachts that we seem to have nowadays.
I think the express issue here is the RVs that are kind of living there and causing trouble. Because Grant Street, all the streets nowadays, that's just how it works. Somebody's coming the other way, you stop and pull over and let them go by. But the RV thing, that's concerning me, and the fact that it's just going to go someplace else.
Yeah, I keep telling him to go up to 12th Street and then it's his problem.
Keep them in your.
Actually, 12th Street's posted
Yeah.
very, very well.
But
They're
no,
staying out of there now.
I mean, it's kind of like that on Second Street where they've yellowed out one side of it. You can only park on one side. They're about the same width for the street. So it's not I don't think it's a bad idea.
No, I don't either.
Well,
No, knowing that it might
yeah.
trickle to someplace else, but I
So
think for
what-
that particular area, it's a good idea.
Okay, so what we would typically do, anytime we do remove parking off of a street. So I haven't gone out and measured it. I'm betting Jeremy knows how to use a tape measure, so we're gonna go with his 33 feet. Our typical for parking on both sides is 36 in a residential. So you're talking about 3 feet. So yeah, it does narrow up the street. So if council wants to entertain eliminating parking on the south side of Elmore there, I would suggest that staff probably put out a letter to all those residents. You hold a public hearing on it, so people can come in and testify, or they can submit comments. That's the way we've done it in the past. So that people can come in and tell you. I personally have not, I mean, I've seen the cars, but I personally have not pictured who's using it as parking. So if we do that with the residents, and then that way you get a good feel for if the residents are behind you on this or not. And then from there, we can do a resolution and do the no parking, because that does take an action at council.
Yeah, Jeremy's not wrong. I travel on that road almost daily, going up around by our apartments that we're renovating. And yeah, it's a pain.
Is there increased activity over there, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, KJ kind of said it very well. It's kind of a problem citywide. We have a lot of RVs that are, shouldn't be parking, but are, and then we are chasing them around from one place to the next. So I think on 12th Street, that was a problem, and we,
And then Vaughn Lane was a problem for a bit.
Yep.
Now, there are potential ordinance.
I was just gonna say, I think we have some ordinances in place that can say no overnight RV parking or something to that effect. That way we can still have the parking necessary for neighbors, but no overnight parking for RVs. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, and the issue is there is a provision to allow RV parking on private property with a permit.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, somebody living in an RV on a street is camping.
Yep.
And subject to the camping, although there's also the issue of moving. And I am working actually on an ordinance similar to this in SIO, which addresses the issue of moving them around. Because there's a limit on parking RVs on a street anywhere in the city for more than a specific amount of time. So that is an ordinance I could do a little research on and bring back that we would address the issue of RVs, recreational vehicles on city streets, and address the issue of moving from one spot to another.
I would like to see something like that brought back to council.
Oh, Kelly's looking at me with a big sigh. I told you we're going to have to address this after we did the camping.
You notice I'm not looking to the
You
left to see
knew
Kelly.
it was coming.
Would this also include vans, large vans?
Anything that is being lived in would likely fall into the definition.
Well, I know that aren't RVs by ORS required to be hooked up to sewer and water to be lived in?
No, but to be an accessory dwelling unit at somewhere, they have to be hooked up to septic. And maybe that's just a county rule that may not be applied to cities.
In city, we do not allow for recreational vehicles to be used for accessory dwelling units on property.
Yeah.
We do allow for RVs to be lived in on private property through a temporary permit for 15 days with extensions for up to 45 days or something like that. I don't believe we have a provision in that permit requirement that they have to be hooked up because they can go and dump at our city dump and connect to water.
I just seem to.
County does have that program though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seem to remember reading City of Eugene actually put out the things about this, that if it's on private property, you can only live in it if it's, you're rebuilding your structure basically, and you'd have to have hookups and I thought they were ORSs, but I might be mistaken.
Well, there's the Oregon statute that allows it, and I think it doesn't apply necessarily to cities, but the county has adopted it, where they have to inspect it, it has to be hooked up to the water and the septic system and inspected, and then it can be allowed as an accessory dwelling unit, is my understanding.
And there is a requirement that RVs are allowed in manufactured home parks.
Yeah.
And in that situation, yes, they have to be hooked up in that situation. But
Alrighty. Does staff have enough to move forward on?
No.
No?
Actually
Okay.
not. So do
Okay.
you want to deal with the RVs or do we want to deal with the no parking?
I'd like to see both.
Okay, so because if we can get rid of the RVs, right, from parking there, 3 feet's not, it's not terrible. It's traffic calming.
No,
It's not
but I
terrible.
think we need to look at both sides of the equation.
Sure.
See which way is the smart way to go.
Okay, so before I send letters out to residents, let us do a little investigation on the staff side. Trey, if you could investigate your ordinance for us on the.
I have investigated a lot.
Okay.
I'll be
And
ready.
We'll bring something back and have more discussion. How's that?
I think that's a good idea.
I would just like to add one other thing though. If we're gonna make it where you can't park there, are we gonna enforce it? That's
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't work if we don't enforce it.
There's always
so,
that piece.
Yeah, so anyhow, Any other items from council, if we're done with that item?
Sorry, Kelly.
Jeremy, you good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other items from council? Okay. Any public or press comments? No, none from press. Is there, please come forward to the microphone.
Hi, my name is Mary. Hi, my name is Mary Cook. Just a question. I was sitting out there watching and listening about the water utility rates going up. And I'm just trying to figure out, did you guys just vote to increase the rates here today with us? Was that what you just did?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Okay. Okay, any other public comments? Do the Boy Scouts want to say anything or no? No, they're good?
Here for a civic meeting.
They're doing community service stuff.
Give them a little test up here.
See if they've been listening.
Okay. Next scheduled council meeting be April 24th, 2024, city council work session at noon. After that, it'll be May 8th, 2024, regular meeting at 6 PM. I encourage the public to please attend these. There's a lot of information that's given out during work sessions and the
Budget sessions,
the budget sessions too. So,
29th and 30th.
yeah, the budget, 29th and 30th at noon.
Correct.
So, if that's it, this meeting is adjourned.